So today we're going to talk about characterization and foils in Catcher in the Rye, chapter 7 through 9. So you need to make sure that you've read chapter 7 through 9 before you start doing this assignment. This is page 15 in your booklet. So we talk about characterization and foils when we talk about two contrasting characters. So I'm just going to read what you have in your booklet. So in literature, two characters who contrast one another to such a degree that, when paired, exaggerate the qualities of the other are called foils. So foils is really important because we're going to see two characters, Stradlater or Stradlater, depending on how you want to pronounce it, and Ackley. These two characters are such extremes from one another, but yet Holden interacts with both of them in a different way. So these foils are mirror images of each other. So I want you to highlight or underline that line right there. They are mirror images of each other. In Catcher in the Rye, Holden parallels Ackley and Stradlater, and they both have a hand in ushering Holden out of Pensy early. So this is the school that they're at, and they both are encouraging him to leave early in some way or another. So we'll talk about that. So the directions are to fill in the chart in order to compare the attributes of Ackley and Stradlater and their influence on Holden. One row has been done for you. So you don't need to worry about pausing this video right this second because we're going to talk about Ackley and Stradlater in a little bit of depth. So make sure that you have the word foil highlighted as well as that sentence right after the word foil. Done? Awesome. So we're going to move on talking about Ackley. So I have written down that Ackley is skinny, lanky, and pimple-faced. So I have those right up here as well. So you can see those three bits of detail about Ackley. So we're talking just about physical appearance right now. So they say that Ackley looks like he is really thin, skinny, pimpled face. So when I did a Google search to try and see what Ackley looked like, to try and get a picture in my head, this is what came up. So we have a picture of this young guy. He might have some problems on his face there. You can see that he's skinny and lanky because you see his bones sticking out in his throat. You also see that his chest is, or sorry, not his chest, his shoulders are bony as well. So this is a fairly accurate representation of what Ackley probably looks like. So while you're getting down those three pieces of information about Ackley, I want you to pause this video and then we'll talk about Stradlater. So now I would like to talk about Stradlater. So he isn't particularly the kind of roommate that Holden would typically have. He is popular. He has only one thing on his mind when it comes to girls, and he doesn't seem like a really good match for Holden, but Holden kind of looks up to him. And also Stradlater can get Holden to do all of his homework for him. He has that kind of a personality. So, under the physical appearance row, under Stradlater's column, I would like you to write football player stature. That's the first part. And handsome. So I'm going to pause the video, or I'll ask you to pause the video so that you can write those things down, and then we'll talk about them just a little bit. So Stradlater is interesting because he's able to get all the girls that Holden would ever dream of getting. So when I think about Stradlater in my head, I think of a couple of different people. So I'm going to show you a few examples. So we'll start about talking about the picture on the left here. So this picture on the left shows Stradlater and Holden having a conflict in the washroom. So obviously Stradlater is about to take a punch, or throw a punch, I mean. And you can see all the detail in this particular image. Holden doesn't seem to be all that scared in this picture. You can tell just by his back being straight, but him not backing away or leaning away. Now, this might be intentional from the artist, but it could not be as well. So that's for that picture. On the other hand, Stradlater, we know, is a secret slob. So he has an issue with his hygiene. So we see here Holden sitting on the sinks, or the row of sinks, and Stradlater's talking to him about his date that he's going to have with Jane Gallagher. And Holden has a face that doesn't exactly show what he's thinking, which is, don't do your usual tricks with the girls on Jane. Don't try and pull that on her. So there's two different interpretations of what Stradlater could look like, and I also have a third. So this is a third picture of what Stradlater could look like. So you can see here he has the dark hair like we have seen in the other two pictures. He has a little bit of a dark kind of persona, characteristically, stereotypically handsome, and he looks a little bit intimidating, which is kind of important in our novel. So those are a couple examples of what Stradlater could look like if we compare that to what we see from Ackley. Two very different ideas. I have one more thing to tell you about the novel to help you complete this worksheet. So where it says age or grade in school, the third row, it's important to know that a senior in the novel is another way of saying grade 12 student. So hopefully you have now everything that you need to get started on page 15, talking about characterization and foils. If you have any questions, save them until I am back in class, and we'll talk about them then.